Well, what we've seen this week in this place is obscene. Labor and the Greens have struck another dirty deal together. 22 bills being guillotined with little to no debate. The Senate is meant to be a house of representative democracy, the house of review, led by the most transparent government, they say. Labor only represents 35% of the population, probably less on current polling, and the Greens just 12%. Ramming through all this legislation sends a clear message to the Australian people. This government does not care about giving proper representation to over half the country. This is a complete dismantling of our democracy. It is atrocious, shameful behaviour. And we're not talking about minor technical bills. No. This is about clearing away a few inconsequential measures that have been sitting. These are substantial, important bills that will now pass without any debate. This is happening because the Greens, who spend every day screaming about everyone else's vested interests, have cut a grubby backroom deal, again, that spits in the face of democracy. So what has been rushed through? Let's begin with the Treasury Laws Amendment, Genetic Testing Protections in Life Insurance and Other Measures Bill, 2025. This is classic Labor, a measure we would support. But the poison pill jammed into it, the other measures. One Nation supports Schedule 1 that stops life insurance companies from using genetic testing to discriminate in their policies. We do not want insurance companies influencing parents' decisions on their unborn children by denying cover based on genetic makeup. We would support this measure. But Labor has done what it always does, all the time, and slipped in a poison pill, completely unrelated in other measures. Schedule 3 of this bill includes new powers allowing appropriations to multilateral developed banks and the IMF. In plain language, this bill gives the power to pay out taxpayer money from consolidated revenue to foreign globalist banks. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. It allows for the delegation of these powers from ministers to senior bureaucrats. Australia cannot afford to be giving out handouts. One Nation rejects any powers that send taxpayer money overseas to globalist bureaucrats. Stop creating these bills that hide serious expansion powers in other measures. Labor must allow real debate instead of hiding behind record numbers of guillotined bills. Another bill ran through without debate on the back of this dirty Greens Labor deal is the National Health Amendment Passive Immunological Products Bill 2026. Just 4 years after the COVID pandemic, Labor is changing the definition of a vaccine without any debate. Does Labor really think the Australian people are happy to see the definition of a vaccination expanded to include mRNA vaccines with zero discussion? Unbelievable. Is this the will of the people, or has Labor completely stopped caring about what Australians want? The horror stories from COVID, the damage from rushed, untested, experimental vaccine will be studied for decades. One Nation would have a royal commission into this debacle. We will fight for a reckoning against those who were reckless and malicious in their positions of power. One Nation will move an amendment to this bill, or have moved an amendment to the bill, requiring that all vaccines must be tested against a placebo. Pretty standard stuff. Go and have a look at who actually voted with us. Currently, vaccines are only tested against other vaccines. That is not the gold standard. It is substandard. When manufacturers cannot be held liable for damages, we must demand the highest testing standards. Again, there is no debate, no democracy, no respect for the will of the people. Only the will of Mr. PM Albanese and his dirty salad partners. Finally, there is the Corporations Amendment Digital Asset Framework Bill 2025. This is an enormous piece of legislation, highly complex and more than 200 pages long, including the bill and explanatory memorandum. It grants the Minister broad new powers to prohibit certain digital asset classes and to create regulations governing digital assets. One Nation recognises the need for some protections for Australians in the digital assets space. However, many Australians are rightly concerned that these powers are too sweeping. The bill lacks detail on the specific regulations, leaving room for dangerous, heavy-handed government overreach. By forcing this bill through with no debate and no time to prepare amendments, Labor, with only 35% of the vote, has told the rest of Australia that it does not care what they think. The Australian people are being deprived of the representation they were promised under our Constitution. This is not a government for the people, it is a government only in it for themselves. And it's a government telling Aussies, you don't matter.